As we introduce this discussion on multicultural society, we'll look at several factors affecting our work in multicultural society. Obviously, each person is going to differ based on their emotional intelligence, their social intelligence, their perspective taking, and adaptability. And as we work within global organizations that are facing, working with expatriate managers, some of the issues and problems with people in their ability to adjust to foreign environments, these factors will all figure into that. Also, organizations, for business as well as education and NGOs, non-government organizations, all these are losing, thousands of dollars in investment of training and preparing people to work in different cultural settings. And so not only for their work here in the States in a multicultural society, but also overseas, and some of the frustrations that people experience as a result of that. Many of these things can be tied into these four areas on this graphic here of the different intelligences and adaptability and perspective taking. So hopefully through your study in this module with the readings and interaction with your colleagues, and along with other things that are posted in the course, will help you as you form a way and a process of developing multicultural competencies as we move through. As we think about intercultural competence, what are some of the things that we need to just, to be aware of? And so here we've got a nice graphic to kind of, portray that, illustrate it. But intercultural competence is defined differently than other areas of cross-cultural work. For example, Thomas, in his development of intercultural competence and contributions to psychology, describes intercultural competence as the necessary precondition for an adequate, successful, and mutually satisfactory communication encounter and cooperation between people from different cultures. And so we want to be able to build upon that and how these different areas here that we're looking at with the communicative, the affective dimension of attitudes, and then our knowledge. And hopefully build our knowledge that will affect our other areas as you see all these things go back and forth and inform the other areas of how we communicate and how our attitudes are shaped and formed. Now, as we think about multicultural society that we live in and the intercultural competencies that we're trying to build, I compiled a top 10 best practices for intercultural competence training and assessment, some of the things that you might want to think of. So we'll move through those quickly as we go through the next few slides, but I just wanted to bring these to your attention as well. I think they're really important and can really help us as we move forward and trying to help us to be more informed in those areas that we talked about, the affective, the behavioral, and our cognitive, in each of those informing the other areas as we try to do better and work better in our multicultural societies and surroundings in which we find ourselves, whether educators, business, or whatever, nonprofit, just living and being more effective. So the first best practice, start with the needs assessment. And with that, you want to pay special attention to culturally unique aspects of the job. So pretty much assess the task, the person, and organizational needs. For international training, focus specifically on culturally unique aspects of the task, person, and organization, and then consider spousal and family needs for expatriate trainees as you're working in that area. If you're on the HR side, training other folks, or you're in an education system and you're working with people that will be having overseas assignments, maybe working for a short stint, maybe going to China or Korea to work for three weeks at a time, or to South America, to Latin American countries, whatever. But to have those things considered in your as you put together your training to build intercultural competence. Number two, the second best practice for building intercultural competence and assessments is to have your cognitive learning outcomes that are necessary but not sufficient to develop skills-based and effective outcomes. So you really want to think through that, of using experiential training, maybe some case studies to develop the cognitive and affective and behavioral aspects of intercultural competence all at the same time. So seeing some of those things, role playing, that sort of thing, exercises stimulate the emotions, the behaviors, and they can also be engaging for those who are going through that training as well. So number three, best practice. Let's think about generic training, culturally generic. So especially if trainees are working and could be working with multiple cultures. Uh, think about that in education, obviously in business world, but education especially is you're working in a multicultural society. So focus on developing transferable competencies such as adaptability or social problem solving. Provide opportunities for trainees to practice the competencies across a variety of settings. So give them some ideas, some settings, some maybe some case studies, some role playing again, maybe looking at watching some videos or some movies and seeing how people carry out their actions, and then maybe providing some alternatives. So this fourth best practice, I think is really good to think about related to the work situation. So whether it's in education or an HR training, that your training is matching the design and the outcomes of where you're working. So you could focus on work-related aspects of the culture, such as, like, for example, business cultural customs or educational cultural customs. Tailor the training to reflect the cultural toughness of a given culture. So you really want to think through that as you prepare students or trainees to go through this intercultural competence training and assessment. Number five, best practice, use longer, more complex training for longer, more complex assignments. So here you want to just match the length of the training components to the length of the transfer assignments. So avoid wasting resource on extensive training for more short-term assignments. Pretty much common sense there. On this sixth best practice, don't waste time. Individualize training to the trainee as much as possible if you're able to do that. So consider the acculturation profile of the trainee when choosing what training components to implement. So if a person already is familiar or has traveled, say for example, to Latin America or South America and speaks fluent Spanish, spent some time there, you can go ahead on some other areas maybe and look at some other things. Same thing with immigrants and things like that here, and that may be going back to working in their home country, and some of the things that they will need to be aware of is assimilating back. So you want to prioritize the components of the training based on the acculturation profile in order to minimize the effort. So make sure that you kind of aware of that up front, so you're not wasting the time of the person who's having the being trained to do something, because they may already know a lot about the host culture or have already maybe even spent some time there in their past based off their experience. So things to consider there would be good. Okay, best practice seven. Let's provide trainees with an advanced organizer, or use a guiding theoretical framework. For example, early in the training, to help guide the process, you might want to give them an advanced organizer to help them see where they're going from point A to point B and finishing. There's a process going through here. There's a clear theoretical framework to develop the advanced organizer as you move through the training program that whatever you're put together, or if you're using one from another organization, from somebody else's material or something you may be have tapped into or working through. So this one here, and if you could create your own, once again, just help them. You help those that you're training to see the purpose of that. It will make their training experience a little bit more beneficial and maybe less frustrating as well. And best practice eight, I think this is a really good one here. Let's, think through getting the best of both worlds. So maybe use an integrated training approach. So, don't limit it to one way where you're just teaching from a lectern or just doing only case studies or experiential type things. So, based on the needs of the trainees and the type of situation thing that you're trying to transfer to them, competency or idea or blend. So some things may be more appropriate for teaching, just giving knowledge maybe from a lecture, whereas some other things you may need to put them in role play and to see how they would work through it in things that they necessarily can't predict. But once that's done, then maybe go back and assess that and how you maybe would have handled things a little differently in a certain situation. And I think this ninth practice, this about ninth best practice, I think is really important. You providing feedback to to your trainees, to those who are working, just like you as students. As you're going through your program, you like to hear clear, descriptive feedback. Helps you gives you some explanation of why you're getting a grade you're getting, or getting maybe the marks that your trainees are getting, and some of the feedback, and give them multiple times throughout the training process. Just like you don't want to wait till the very end to see your grade. You like to kind of track it and see, your grade book updated. And the same thing with those that you're training, so they kind of understand where they're at on the spectrum, on the continuum as they go through their training, so that they realize, hey, you're doing good here. Maybe spend a little bit more time over in this area, thinking through some of the maybe more of the affective, your behavioral and your cognitive are really good, but how about your affective area, and how's that affecting you emotionally and being able to deal with some things. So that would be good. So just some good feedback to help them as they begin to think through process of working in the multicultural society that they're experiencing or will experience. And finally, the 10th and final best practice in our top 10 list here is evaluation of intercultural competence training. Should just go beyond more than just an evaluation sheet at the end, or you know smile sheet, as says here on our slide. But try to assess them as many different ways as you can. Competency based skills and attitudes, not just their reactions, but try to get other ways that you can measure that. Maybe you're doing some videoing, and maybe you're doing some audio capture, and working with them, and just kind of sensing and realizing their different responses in different areas. And it's like I said, just the different methods you can to capture the outcome as well. Survey sheets are good, and evaluation sheets are good, but there's other ways to do that as well. Um, with the technology that's available, with video and screen captures, and audio as well, and just sensing those reactions, and then being able to assess those, and put those in real time, and sit with the candidate or the trainee, and show them some of these areas. So, summary as we conclude this lecture on the Multicultural Society, and really focusing on intercultural competency training, we looked at the didactic training approaches, experiential training, and then the mixed training approaches as we go through that top 10 list, and the different ways to get the best outcome for what you're trying to communicate in a situation. Some may need to be role plays. Others, you're giving information about a specific country, and facts and figures and numbers, and then sometimes maybe do a mixed training approach. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I think there's a lot of good things here to think through, not only from this lecture, but also from the readings and the other course materials. So appreciate you listening in today. Thank you.